I want to thank you all for being here. I guess you've already received the letter that I provided to City Manager Craig Freeman. My plans to retire on May 2nd. I've been blessed to have been in this department for 40 years, and I don't know, blessed or lucky to have been chief for 15 years. I always didn't seem to be blessed with that, but I feel very fortunate to be entrusted to be the chief of this police department when Jim Couch promoted me 15 years ago. I really want to start by thanking a few people. If I can do it unemotionally, I have to thank my wife first. For 15 years, she has supported me, and she's been through quite a lot. She's been through bad days because it's a job that you cannot do and not take home. This is a job that somebody there has to be to support you emotionally and be a sounding board for you, and my wife has done that above and beyond. And she's a very special person, and I could not have done it without her. Second person, there's several other people I'd like to thank. Obviously, our past city manager, Jim Couch, who entrusted this job to me 15 years ago, knowing that I think one of the funniest things was knowing that I was always kind of a not stand still person, and told him I might scare him a little bit and make his job a little harder, but he gave me the job anyway, because he felt the same way, that we needed to always be moving forward, that we always needed to be making a difference and making changes, or we were going to fall behind, and that the community expected us to do that. So I have to appreciate the trust that the city manager, Jim Couch, gave to me 15 years ago, and stuck with me. And I appreciate that very much. M.T. Berry, the past chief, I always cussed him in the beginning because he left too early, and I felt like I didn't want the chief's job that early, because I wanted to be down here for a lot longer, not thinking I could do this job for 15 years. But there's a lot of reasons that I've been able to do that, and there are a lot of people involved with that, a lot of support. I want to thank the new city manager, Craig Freeman. What a job. I mean, it's hard enough going into a new job as a city manager in the beginning anyway, and then with a lot of the things that were going on, obviously, at the time, and the whole time supported me and trusted me through that whole process, and I can't thank him enough for that. He'll be a great city manager. He will be a great city manager. The people on the department, I'll probably wait for a lot of my statements about this department and the people that make it what it is when it gets closer to my retirement on May 2nd, because I could sit here and talk to you about this department and why it is what it is for an hour, and I'll save a lot of that for a later date. But I am leaving very content, very satisfied with the decision at this point in time, and I am going to be here for 3 more months. I plan on still being chief for 3 more months. We have a lot of officers that sometimes it's a little stressful going through a transition like this, but I know the city manager and myself and others will try to make that happen as quickly and smoothly as possible for somebody to take my place. I'll leave it at that and open it up to any questions you may have.
Has this been a decision that you've been contemplating for a long time?
Bill, I'll be honest with you. Between my wife and I, we were really planning on trying to leave January 2020 for a variety of personal reasons. But this is about 6 months earlier. It's a little bit earlier than planned, but it's the right time and it's the right decision at this point in time. And with the things that are going on in the department, so it is the right time, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that decision. And believe me, my wife's even more comfortable with that decision.
Can you elaborate what you mean by it's the right time that's going on in the department?
Well, I mean, you know, I tell you what, there's always conflict. You don't see it. You don't always see conflict. It's not always public, but we deal with conflict constantly, whether it's externally in the community. We're in the conflict resolution business. It also happens internally, and that's not always a bad thing. I mean, good things come out of conflicts. Positive things come out of conflicts, and I anticipate any conflicts that we've gone through right now. I mean, I'm not going to ignore that elephant in the room, but at the same time, I'm going to be very positive about it because the changes that are going to be made and things like that are going to be good for this department and good for this city. This department wasn't built overnight. It wasn't built before I came. There's people that had a lot to do with that. The character of this police department, the openness of this police department started a long time before I ever became chief, and it's going to last a long time after. So, you know, there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of issues that are occurring and have occurred that, you know, it's time. It's not a time to making things messy and have them messy for the city. This is a great city. This is a great department, and it's not to anybody's benefit to prolong those things, and you know, it's just not. So that in and of itself is not a reason for me leaving. You know, it's like I said, I was planning on leaving at some point, and it's just the right time for me, for the department, and for the city. Nothing negative about it. It's just, you know, it is, because like I said, you know, we deal with conflict all the time. We deal with differences, you know, either with the unions or internally with staff. That happens all the time. It usually doesn't happen where you get that information, because we usually deal with those and resolve those. But you know, this is a little bit different, you know, and but it's also very positive, and I'm leaving with the confidence that things will continue to improve and go forward. And I want to leave at a time where I think it's a good time for those types of things to happen.
Can you elaborate on a couple or three of the issues going forward that your successor will inherit, for lack of a better word?
My successor will inherit an excellent police department. We're made up of over 1,100 officers, are the ones that make this department what it is, and that's what a successor is going to inherit, Bill.
Do you feel like any of this decision was aided by someone else who wasn't your family, the FOP, or any of those other conflicts you mentioned, any of the elephants in the room? Do you feel pushed out in any way, shape, or form?
I don't know. If anybody knows me, listen, I've dealt with conflicts, whether it's with the unions or there's always disagreements, and those disagreements sometimes, well, those disagreements need to happen, because that's what makes things change. Because believe me, in 15 years as chief, I'm not always right, and a chief has to be subject to criticism. If you're not willing to be subject to criticism and listen to that criticism, then you're not going to get better, because I need that input, you know, and sometimes I'm wrong. And I'm not saying that's the case in all of this, but that conflict makes things better. It makes you grow, as long as you handle them in the right way. And so it's just, you know, I support the FOP. I'm a member of the FOP. I have been for 40 years. I will continue to be, because I truly believe the mission of that FOP is to support our police officers in a lot of different ways. They need that support. They need that representation. I don't always agree with the particular leadership and philosophy, and so, but I do believe in the mission. I do support that mission, and I've always tried to work with the FOP, and in most cases the FOP's really worked with me. And I think the FOP deep down wants the same things that I want, and that's to make this the best department possible. We don't always agree what that is. Most of the time that's not always made public, but we do continue to have those discussions, and there's always those conflicts. But again, I've always tried to kind of embrace those conflicts to make things better. Just like the media, I can't, I've always been a huge supporter of the media, but challenges by the media, differences that they think are things that we're doing wrong and challenging us has made a lot of positive change in law enforcement over the years, and I think nothing better describes that than what we've seen that happened beginning with Ferguson. And so there have been so many good positive changes in law enforcement because of that, and the media's played a big role in that because you put pressure on us, and if you're in a chief's position and you're not willing to deal with that pressure and deal with that criticism, then you shouldn't be doing the job, and you definitely won't last very long.
Is it fair to say the ethics complaint prompted you to bump your decision up by 6 months?
The ethics complaint would be the least of the reasons for bumping anything up at this point in time. Well, I mean, it's a constant. There's constant issues that are out there, and and the FOP has had issues with me for quite some time. I don't think they dislike me. I don't think they're not supportive of me in most cases, but there have been disagreements, and I just think that and you get to a point, if you've been chief 15 years, that the officers think I was born a chief and don't realize that I was actually a police officer for many, many years and did a lot of police things. So, and you got to realize I've probably hired the majority of the officers in the field now. We're a very young department. So it's harder to manage when people don't know you. It's a little bit harder in building that respect because they don't know you. There's a combination of things, but I'm not leaving because of those things. As if anybody knows, we've had disagreements, we've had issues and conflicts before that some have been made public, and I'm usually willing to address those because I always feel like I've done things for the right reasons, and I'm the type of person that will stand up for something very strongly if I think it's the right reason, it's the right thing. So, that's just kind of me. But again, that takes its toll after 15 years and you've been chief. Most chiefs last about, 4 or 5. Nationally, it's even less. Because it's a very tough job. It's a hard job. And on a constant basis. And that's not just dealing with stuff internally, but you have the external issues, of trying to lower crime and trying to work with the citizens in the community to reassure them that they can trust this police department and will be responsive to some of their concerns. That's a huge part of that, and it's been a big part of what I've tried to do over the last 15 years, and that's build relationships in the community. But alone, I can't do that. You have to convince the officers in the field that it's their responsibility also, and their actions and the way they treat people and the respect. Has a lot to do with the confidence that the community is going to have in supporting this police department. So it's not just me. I mean, the police chief sets that tone. The police chief kind of sets, the mission, and you have to convince, and you usually have to convince officers based on how you really feel about that, and that they know you care about those issues and they're important. And again, the media coverage and what's gone on the last several years has helped support that public pressure that they want more and they expect more from our police department. It's just like judicial reform. The community expects that. We should be responding to that because we play a big role in judicial reform. And so we have to listen because society changes, and we have to do our best to meet the needs of what the society wants, as long as it doesn't jeopardize their safety, because sometimes what society wants isn't always in the best interest of a safe community. Those are hard things to balance, very hard things to balance, but I think we've worked hard with the community in trying to address those things and changing culture in a police department. In the last 2 years, we've had to change the culture. De-escalation, body-worn cameras, we changed the pursuit policy. There's a lot of things we've done that completely changed the culture of the police department, and that's not easy. It's not easy changing the culture within an agency like this. So those create conflicts. You have to work through those, and you have to, not only do you have to have the community accept the changes and respond to what they think they want, and if it's not good for them, at least educate them, but also the officers internally. And that's very, very challenging to do. And so everybody has to work together to do that. The unions play a big part in that. The officers in the field, our training staff, the public, upper administration play a big role in setting the tone and setting that mission. So again, there's always conflicts. I don't think there's ever a time a police chief is going to work where there's not a cloud hanging over him over some issue. And you have to do your best to work through those. And so, you know, it does. You know, at a point in time, I mean, I've been 15 years. That is plenty long enough to be police chief. And if you'd asked my wife, she probably had me retire probably a year ago, because she sees the toll it takes on me and everybody else. So a lot of it's personal. Yes.
I know you still have a few months left as chief, but in your past 15 years, any particular moments or accomplishments that you're particularly proud of?
Well, you're standing in one of them. The buildings, obviously, the physical structure was kind of a goal of mine. I really had two goals that I thought I had 5 years to do them in, because I figured that's usually the life of a chief, 5 to 7 years. And my first two goals was, one, to build a new headquarters building, because it was so badly needed, and we accomplished that. The second one was to totally, and this, I mean, nobody knows about this, but it was very hard to accomplish, is totally, with everything going on, with all the terrorism issues and things like that, was to totally revamp and change our criminal intel unit and processes and hire more analysts, so that we're being more preventive and more proactive in trying to keep things from happening. And so, and that was, I mean, that may sound like an easy thing to do, but that's also a cultural change, because our intelligence unit wasn't really doing intelligence. And that took about 5 years to do, and I think we have one of the best intelligence units. We work well with the FBI, we work well with the State Fusion Center. To me, that's a huge accomplishment for me, that you don't really hear about that, because a lot of that stuff's covert, but it's very important. And so, but if you ask me what the most, and somebody was, you know, if you ask me the most things that have impacted me most, and I can, it's one of those things I get emotional about, because the things that impact me the most and I'm most proud of, I see a lot of faces of officers that have worked a full career that were in crisis at one time. Some type of momentary mental health crisis or alcoholism, or that, you know, they just reflect society, the officers do, and they have some of the same personal issues. And if I really take pride in trying to help somebody work through those and let them work and live a full career, and sometimes keep their families together, because this is not an easy job, and it impacts our officers. So if you ask me some of my most favorite moments, I see the faces of a lot of those officers that nobody will ever know, you know, have really worked through a lot of issues, and I've been able to help with that. That's one power as police chief I've been able to have. Sorry, I get emotional about the personnel stuff.
Will you be involved at all in choosing a new chief, and do you know if it's going to be a search within the department or one nationwide?
That's totally the city manager's job. You know, every chief's position that's been open, I know one hasn't been open in 15 years, but even in the process that I went through, it was a national. Usually it's always put out there nationally, and I don't anticipate that being any different, but that's up to the city manager to do. So.
If I'm a resident of the city, I'm wondering what the state of the city is with regard to crime, which the police department addresses.
You saying how this might impact it?
No, more along the lines of what do I need to be worried about as a resident, or what should I know about where crime has been and where crime is going?
Well, I mean, you can look at the crime statistics. I mean, we look at statistics and we look at the areas of where the crime's occurring. The areas where crime's occurring are fairly constant. They ebb and flow. They go up. Homicides are definitely something I never looked at because it really goes up and down, and there's not a whole lot of control as to whether or not somebody's life's saved after they're assaulted. But I do look at assaults, and assaults have been creeping up. We got assaults since 2012. We were able to reduce the assaults considerably, but it has been creeping up. We've made a huge dent in drive-by shootings over the years. They've been through the roof at times, and they're I hate to call them reasonable because nothing's acceptable or reasonable, but they have gone down over the years, and we've worked hard to try to reduce that. So the gang issues are still, I don't know that they're growing, although there are some gangs that are in the community that have become more violent. Guns are prevalent in this community, even more so than most. And if you have that and have easier access to firearms, you're going to have them. Their firearms are usually the weapon of choice in any type of assault, and that's a growing issue. That's a growing issue. So. Hopefully the taxpayers, when they authorize the sales tax, is adding more officers. We're in the process of doing that. That doesn't happen overnight. That's going to take 3 or 4 years to actually get everybody hired. Our next class, which starts tomorrow, actually has over 70 people in the class, which will be one of our largest classes. We've started some lateral classes. I don't like doing that because you're stealing from other police departments, especially in the metro area, and they need good people too, and they affect this community. So we're doing it to try to fill positions, at least on a temporary basis. So we've really kind of upped the ante on our recruitment. We still struggle with recruiting minorities, especially black minorities to join the police department. But we have some things in place, things we're going to try to do to increase that. Because having boots on the ground helps. Having visibility in a community that's very hard to police because of the square miles. I'd rather be policing about 80 square miles like Seattle with 1,800 officers than 600-something square miles with 1,100. It's because part of it's visibility. Visibility is a great prevention tool, and you need the officers in the field to do that. Other questions? I really don't have plans for retirement. I'm still eager to make an impact. I'll do something. I've been very blessed to be able to work with just some wonderful people in nonprofit areas of this city, and with civic leaders and people in corporations that I'm telling you they care about this city, are willing to put their dollars into it, and then in many cases put their backbone into it. And we have a wonderful, supportive community, and I've grown up here, and that's the one thing that I see here that you don't see in other cities. Is it's just the type of people we have and how supportive they are, and they've been really very supportive of the police department, and I would like to think that it's because we haven't let them down and we've done the job that they want us to do. But I don't have any specific plans, no. Other questions? That's it?
I have one more.
Okay.
You've been citing a lot of conflicts. You've been very transparent with the media. Specifically, what conflict led you to this? You said there was a number of conflicts.
Well, I'm not, and I'm going to tell you what, I'm going out on a positive note here. Conflicts happen daily. We're in the conflict business, whether it's in the community or whether it's internally. You have as many employees as we have, and you have an extremely very tough job to do. It's people. We do good things for people, and they still complain on us. So in working through those, that's it. You don't hear about most of those, but it's a daily issue, and so it's not really one. I mean, if it boils down to anything, I've been chief for 15 years, and maybe I'm a little tired. So not that I still don't want to work. It's just that I'd rather wake up in the morning and turn on the TV and say that's not my problem. So it's just, you know, it's a combination of things. But I'm going to tell you, some of the things that have been, you know, been in the media and things like that, I'm not leaving here bitter. I'm not leaving here. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not. I let my wife do it. No, I don't want. She'll kill me for saying that. I just don't. I'm not. I don't allow that to happen. I respect. There's people in this department that have criticized me and maybe even openly and accused me of things. I am not going to use that to dismiss the fact that they've put in a long career and done a lot of good things for this police department. That's just one thing, and that's the way I have to think about it and want to think about it, because that's the way I was raised. I am a person that does not foster any ill will or anything towards anybody. Like I said, if I got angry and mad and resentful, then I would have been that way every week. And you can't do this job feeling that way, not as chief, because my mother taught me there's good in everybody, and you know that's just it is. There's a lot of people, even the ones that want to criticize, and you could say blame people for. Listen, they've had long careers and they've done a lot of positive things for this police department, and I will not take that away from them. I will not take that away from them.
Anything that you wish you would have changed in your last few years?
Oh yeah, but I don't want to go into those. You know, you can't do this job and not have regrets. If you're working and you're doing it and you're making decisions, if you're really working now, it's probably easy not to have any regrets if you don't do anything. But if you're doing things, you're going to make some mistakes, and you're going to regret that and wish you had done them differently. But I'm not sharing all those with you all. I want to go out sounding kind of perfect, so that's not going to happen either. But other questions? Thank you all, and really sincerely, the media is very important. You don't always get it right. We don't always get it right. But the media, I've always embraced the media as a change agent and holding us accountable. You need to hold government accountable. It's not easy for us all the time, but it's very important, and it's actually been a means for me in this police department to make changes. If you make issues out of it, it's important. So I thank you all. I have a lot of respect for the media. I have ever since I was a captain and got to work in the PIO office and learned what your job is and how tough it is. And it's hard to explain what really goes on in about 30 seconds. So I appreciate that. So thank you very much.